We always like to compare the localization industry in this regard with client relationship before Salesforce, when Excel spreadsheets were used for client relationship as well.
My protein, for example, sales grew in Japan kind of by a crazy amount in 3 years with a whole ton of localization that they've done.
That's a big market cap for a company that's not making money. Let's see if they can fulfill that vision. Welcome to SlatorPod 39, your favorite weekly language industry podcast. Hello from Zurich.
Hi from London.
All right, another great episode today. We got Petr Antropov, today co-founder and CRO of Lokalise with a K. You know, last week we spoke about them, and This week we have them on.
Great.
Really looking forward to that. You know, they raised 6 million Series A. So looking forward to talking to Petr later on. Then we have a full week of like corporate transactions to cover. So, you know, maybe skip ahead if you're not into the business transaction. But what can I do? What can we do if these people go and public?
We just report the news. We don't make the news.
We just report the news, exactly. Another thing, though, we did launch a major new product this week, the investor map, and you're going to tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah.
Then we're going to cover Big Language Solutions, acquisition of ISI Language Solutions in California. You know, Big Language Solutions is Jeff Brink's newish company. Then we're going to talk about the Hut Group going public and what this means for their translation division. And then we're going to cover 3 other corporate news, as well as talk a bit about our up-and-coming buyer report, which by the time this comes out should actually be online. Yes. So, Esther, tell us about the investor map. What is it? How can I use it? Why should I subscribe to Slator Pro?
Those are all very good questions, Florian. Let me tell you a little bit about it. It's the investor map, therefore, is a database. It's an interactive database of investment transactions in the language industry. So that's what it is in a nutshell. We've got 200 transactions and you can search them, you can filter them, you can sort by investor name, target name, year of investment, investment type, lots and lots and lots of different fields, very flexible for whatever you're looking for. It contains about 5 years, maybe more than 5 years worth of investment transactions that are listed in the database, and it covers private equity investments, venture capital investments, strategic investment in the language industry. So anyone external to the language industry that has invested in it. And these are not sort of natural language processing or NLP or AI related investments, particularly. These are core language industry investments. So it's mainly investment in LSPs, also some TMS providers, machine translation providers, media localization, etc. So for anyone on the LSP or supplier side, I suppose it's pretty interesting to see if you're looking to secure funding or investment. It's a good place to start because you've got a list and a database of potential investors. Many times the names of the contacts at those individual firms as well. So these are people who already know the space and potentially like the space as an investment field. And then on the M&A and investor side, again, it's a pretty detailed account of competitor firms, which ones are invested in this space, which types of companies, and which specific ones have managed to get achieve investment in this industry.
Can I download it as an Excel file?
You cannot.
I cannot. All right. No, we got that question a couple of times yesterday. So no, because it's even more awesome than that. It's basically like Crunchbase. Think about like it's like Crunchbase, right? It's got the logo, it's got a site. You can like sort it, filter it, etc. So no, you can't download it. Now I saw that. If some people say I saw that logo map that we shared online, so that's not the actual map, right? That's just a visualization of it.
Exactly. That's the promo piece, I suppose, to put out online. It looks pretty with all of the logos, but no, the database is much more interactive and contains lots more actual data, as you might expect.
And that's for our dear Slator Pro subscribers, right?
Indeed.
Yeah, yes. So there's a lot more value to that subscription that we're adding. Yeah, I mean, look, it's we shouldn't do too much promo on this podcast, but I mean, this is a fantastic new product, and I really like it.
I like it. I think it's good for me as well. I mean, whenever I'm going back and trying to remember who's acquired who or when or things like that, it's a great source of reference as well, and it's very easy to work with.
Yeah, we're going to have to go back there all the time because there's all of these new transactions.
But yeah, I've updated it, I think, twice since we first kind of put it live already. So there we go.
What can we do with all these companies?
Full-time job.
Full-time job. No, it shouldn't be. What can we do if all these companies decide to buy each other, right? So go check it out. And talking about companies buying each other, well, there's the big in capital letters, Big Language Solutions, founded by Jeff Brink, an industry veteran. Brink, it's a big name in the translation industry. It's been around for a long time. And so he started a new company called Big Language Solutions about a year ago, together with a private equity firm called M South out of Atlanta, who we had their Charles Stubb at our SlatorCon conference in San Francisco, where he talked about private equity along with a couple other investors. So they did do their first deal. They acquired Pro Translating, a Florida-based company, last year, and now they went for their second acquisition for a company called ISI Language Solutions, healthcare LSP based in Glendale, California. So, healthcare, insurance, servicing those very large healthcare providers in the U.S. It's kind of hard to apply that to many other countries because, you got the NHS, which also, tenders out a ton of translation. But in the US, it's very much privately funded. I think in Switzerland, we do have some of these private healthcare, or we have a fair amount of private healthcare, but not like those giants that they have in the US. So apparently IS has about 70 staff. They will join Big now, and together with Pro Translating, the group's headcount is now up to 300. So it's getting kind of
it's sizable.
That leader bracket that we have. Is it leader already or challenger? I'm not sure where we cut off.
Where are the revenues?
Revenues will be around, together with the 15.
About 40 million. Yeah. Yeah, so that's firmly in the leader segment.
Yeah, firmly in the leader segment. All right. So then so he said that the company does about 85% of their revenues in document translation and 15% in interpreting. He says although face-to-face interpreting was down, the other part of the business was actually up. And so, that was very appealing to them. I think don't want to go too much into the story, but this is a fairly it was started in 1982, ISI, by a person called George Rimalover, and then they sold to two long-term employees, Emily Villeneuve and Michael Bearden, in 2012, and now they partner with Brink, Brink's Big now. They told us that it was introduced by a boutique advisor firm J Square Conseil, which I then looked up, and it said that Accolade was introduced to them, was introduced Telelingua. J Square introduced Telelingua to Accolade and HL Trod.
Yeah, they've done a few. Yeah, they've worked on a few deals. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really had. I mean, when we saw the news, I kind of remembered that they did something, but we had to pull it up. So we always ask, well, how do you pull off deals in this environment? And they said, it was tough. You did a lot of video calls, Zoom, etc. But then in early June, they did actually fly a few executives over to LA to close that deal. Interestingly, Jeff says that he feels that the marketplace has shifted kind of from a seller's to a buyer's market now. So in the wake of COVID-19, and he sees great deal flow at reduced competition in this environment. So, depends on the target, obviously, but maybe that helps spur a little bit the deal. Deal flow. So lots of people looking for potential exits, but there's still a lot of capital in there to invest. So very interesting. So next would be the Hut Group, which was all over the UK news, even global financial news, right? Yeah. It says it was like the biggest IPO in the UK for 5 years?
Five, yeah, I think that was the Financial Times who said that. And then there was some other kind of qualifier, like biggest in Europe in tech or something.
Yeah, it's funny how they... So okay, why do we care? about
why do we care?
Why do we care about the Hut Group going public in the language industry?
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Right. Well, so you might remember the Hut Group as the owner of Language Connect. So that is a London or UK-based LSP that the Hut Group acquired, well, 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, I think, in July 2018. So they acquired it at the time for about £12.7 million. I think at the time it was sort of, 10, 12 million pounds in revenues or something along those lines. So, not tiny, but not huge either. But yeah, so the Hut Group is a massive sort of e-commerce provider. So they run, on the one hand, they run their own brands. So they have brands, websites that they manage, they run. One that you might have heard of is Look Fantastic. So it tends to be beauty brands, health and well-being type brands as well. So there's Look Fantastic. Another one is My Protein, which seems to be one of the popular ones as well.
I need the My Protein. The Look Fantastic.
Yeah, but I think they've branded it out into like My other stuff. So like, I can't really think, like My, for example, vegetables, or like, My Vitamins. There we go. That's one. So I think they've taken that brand a bit further. But anyway, so they have their own brands, and they would sort of do all the manufacturing, all of the marketing, as you would expect. And then they also provide end-to-end e-commerce solutions for third-party companies. So other websites, other companies would go to the Hut Group for them to do their branding, their product development, and where the whole lock piece fits in, it really is with the website localization and other forms of localization as well. But so, interestingly, and we did take a look, obviously, at the IPO documentation, there's lots of mention of localization, and they're really seeing it as a strategic driver of international growth. So both for their own brands, they gave a couple of case studies for how My Protein, for example, sales grew in Japan kind of by a crazy amount in 3 years with a whole ton of localization that they've done. But also they want to give a vehicle to the brands that they manage and they work with to also grow their sales internationally as well through localization. So lots of localization happening there. Language Connect, that will be a familiar name to some, especially in the UK. They are going to be rebranded. They're in the process of being rebranded to THG Fluently, so the Hut Group, THG Fluently. And Language Connect is housed under one of THG's divisions called THG Ingenuity, which made around £128 million in 2019. So Language Connect, or that division, still works with former or Language Connect customers, pre-acquisition customers, so as well as doing all of the website localization for the Hut Group's brands and for the third-party brands, they're also servicing other customers across, I think, legal, market research. They do a lot of finance, etc. So, yeah.
But it's just interesting that they would buy, an LSP and then own it, and it does show that it was their volumes must be very, very large, right? And
well, they got 25 million, or I think just themselves. So they said words, something along the lines of 25 million. 25 million words in 2019 of just for the THG brands, plus and so all the other stuff.
Yeah, so that's not a gigantic account, but it would be a big account, and it seems very strategic to them, because otherwise why would they buy an LSP, right? So they want to own this internally. They don't want to outsource it.
But I see it as well as just being like like any other sort of services-based company offering translation services or localization services internally rather than outsourcing to a third party. So it's like a contract research organization or a financial printer also developing their own in-house translation localization capabilities. I kind of read it that way, that yes, there are internal volumes, and presumably quite a lot of them, but the main appeal, I think, is in being able to offer that to the customers as internally.
Get it. No, very interesting. And it's like a Publicis that bought blanking on the name.
That was the other one. Translate Plus.
Translate Plus, right. So, obviously a nice exit. Speaking of, our investor map again, if you can sell your LSP to one of those big companies, it's interesting. It's something different.
Yeah.
So, let's see how that goes. An IPO, and I'm sure the people at Language Connect Fluently, THT Fluently are going to be happy about that. This is typically not bad for a company when they go public. It's a lot of funds coming
so they
in.
started trading yesterday, I think, on the London Stock Exchange. It seemed to be going reasonably well.
Not to end on a sad note, but Fluently does. That was in 2016. It was a startup also out of London, Fluently.io, which folded, and then basically. We had a great story where the founder basically told us all of the things she would advise people not to do when they're starting a business. So maybe look that up. That was Fluently.io. So there's a bit of a history.
Was that is that like a blockchain endeavor?
No. That was pre-blockchain. That was just a kind of a startup.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's just go through a couple more corporate news. So there was a Belgian merger. And another IPO, and then a quick keyword. So let's just go very briefly through that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll kick it off.
Yeah,
sure. So in Belgium, we have a merger of two local LSPs, two Belgian LSPs, Elan Languages and One-Liner Translations. So this was a merger that happened or completed in June of this year. The revenues for the combined organization are around $15 million altogether, and they have 45 staff in the combined organization. So they told us they currently use XTM and MemoQ internally. They told us a little bit about their business as well. So Elan was founded in 1990, kind of mix of business across public and private sectors. And the other One-Liner, founded in 2000, is also public, private, SMEs, things like that. And then together as a joint organization, they also acquired a majority stake recently in a Dutch LSP called Password Text Fusion, and that has 8 people. So they're looking to the Netherlands market as well as quite attractive. They said it's fragmented, it's less mature, and than the highly competitive Belgian market.
Okay, interesting.
Yes.
Another one. Merger. So then let's go to Australia again. We spoke about AI media, we're not going to revisit that. Now they did go IPO. So transcription, subtitling, captioning, again, based in Sydney, took the company public in Sydney. Spoke about this before. Why Sydney? Don't know. So many other potential, or not why Sydney for AI media. That makes a lot of sense, but let's have some other LSPs list somewhere. So worked well. I mean, they were up. I think they're up, I don't know, 10% or something from the original offer price. So that's great. Market cap $130 million as of today's closing. That's a big market cap for a company that's not making money. So. Let's see if they can fulfill that vision. And then we had Keywords, which posted results for the first half of the year. I think the most striking thing was that they said that Localization was the only unit that didn't contribute to growth in the first half.
Well, the one which is technically called Localization, the unit, although there are localization activities in the other unit. So overall, I'd say it's still up. If you count all of the localization things together, it's just this one unit called Localization is down in H1.
That was in the first half. However, it bounces back, or it's bouncing back, right? Yeah. So it's coming back pretty strongly. They said there were some disruptions on the client side, etc. But now it's going back. Company overall grows, continues to buy. I mean, that company was tiny, 4 or 5 years ago, and they bought like 30 companies, and now they're like, what are they? $200 million in half a year. So that's quite a big company.
Mm-hmm.
So, anybody interested, go and check it out on the website or their original reporting. So, buyer report, what's that? So, we were going to launch, or we just launched another research report or another, bigger piece.
Yeah. Yes, we did. Buyer report is a rundown of all of the buyer features that we have published on Slator.com in 2020. So there are 11 individual localization buyers, translation and localization buyers featured in this one report. They span technology, healthcare, medical devices, finance, a few others. So we've got the likes of Airbnb, I think World Trade Organization, which we spoke about a few weeks ago, Babylon Health, which we spoke about last week, Pipedrive, which is a CRM platform, and others as well. So we break down in this report the localization volumes, the languages that they work in, operational model, outsourcing preferences, their tech, internal team sizes, and things like that. So it is the same content primarily as what we've published in the editorial content, but obviously it's packaged very differently into bite-size, easy to digest and easy to compare really between the different verticals. And then also we're supplementing that with our typical buyer job titles for all of the end customer verticals that we have featured in the report. And we also have included Slator's market matrix, which is a really good tool covering all of the end customer segments. Overall, I think really, really good value. It's really affordable, $68, and will be a great resource for sales, LSP sales in particular.
I love it.
I mean,
if I had this back in the days, like something like that, and just like, hey, salespeople, why don't you read this? Go read it. It's going to take you, 30 minutes, half an hour, maybe an hour or something. Let's go back and here, it's all these different accounts, different dynamics. You see how much they're outsourcing, what their approach is. It's
and
really
it's just
helpful.
it's so diverse, even within those 11 that we've profiled. I mean, you've got people who are new to localization, never outsourced or barely outsourced anything before. Yeah. There's people who've been doing it for decades, but who are kind of maturing in their approach now. Other people who've just gone out to market and looking for TMS providers. I mean, other people are deciding to hire internally. I mean, you've just got the full range of operational models there and different maturity levels as well. Yeah.
So Pipedrive, they're in Estonia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Estonia. Okay, so we're moving one country further south. I mean, it's just 3 Baltics. So Latvia, where Petr is based and Lokalise is based, I think Latvia's just one further south. You got Lithuania.
I'm on an island.
You're on an island. Okay, I'm going to have to look this up. I think it's Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia in terms of north to south. Maybe not. Okay, I'm going to have to correct that. Let's go and hop over and talk to Petr in just 1 second. And we're back with Petr Antropov, the co-founder and CRO of Lokalise with a K in Latvia. And they made the news recently when they raised $6 million in Series A. Welcome to SlatorPod, Petr.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you being here on such a short notice. You announced that round last week, and here we go. So much appreciated. Are you currently in Riga? Or?
Yes, I'm in Riga. Most of the team is in Riga. However, we now started hiring people from elsewhere as well.
Great. Yeah, Esther and I, there's a previous segment on that podcast where I was wondering, without looking at the map, if it's Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. And I think I got it right. You're in the middle.
In the middle, yes.
You're in the middle. There you go. Cool. So, very exciting times for you, I imagine, right? After such a Series A investment. And a lot of the people in the translation localization industry want to know more about Lokalise and what you guys are all about, who the founders are, and, what the journey was to this point. So maybe first just give us a bit of personal, professional background and, what led you to this point.
There are 2 co-founders, my partner, Nick, and I. This is the usual name, serial entrepreneurs. So this is basically not our first company. And my co-founder, he is a tech guy. He actually maybe was one of the first people in Latvia who got an internet connection back in mid-90s. And this maybe this is the reason, maybe this is the result, but he actually built a local Hotmail at the time, and it was a first M&A transaction. third acquisition when he sold it. And since then, he's done some like restaurants chain as well. So it's not only IT. And now it's basically our third or fourth project. Regarding me, but like we crossed paths only recently.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, but like it's Latvia is a small country; it's 2 million, so we knew of each other, and we figured out we play squash some like 15 years ago.
Okay,
regarding me, I was in investment banking in the beginning after the school, and then my classmate he invited me into helping him with a social network, and Latvia and basically the Baltics at mid 2000 years, they were the leaders in social networks. That was actually before Facebook. If you remember, if you know, there was Friendster at that time and MySpace. So somewhere in the middle, there was Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, and it got like to almost like 80% penetration. And my classmate was struggling with going into other countries, and I helped him to do this. And it grown into the largest social network in the region, including Russia and Ukraine. And another project I was co-founding was, and still is, it's a video streaming service, also like the most popular in the former Soviet Union. It's called megago.net.
That one's still going, right? That's still alive. I mean, that
both are alive. So Odnoklassniki is a part of a Mail.ru group. So it's like kind of grown into a unicorn without me. And megago.net, it's turning over something like more than 100 million a year.
Wow, but you're no longer like operationally involved with that, because I guess Lokalise absorbs a fair amount of your time, right?
100% focus. This is one of the secrets, I believe, in good companies. So it's both. I was not that much interested in larger companies. Maybe I am more interested in those now. So like I like to start things, loved to start things and to see them like grow rapidly. And also maybe it was my mistake also to exit early. I don't want to do this for the third time.
All right. So so we got a bit of an overview of you and Nick's previous companies. You exited that's very interesting. Can you just tell us a bit more about like what's the elevator pitch for Lokalise? I always like to ask people just in a nutshell. It's very hard, but like it's hard to kind of define like a USP in this industry. So have you perfected that pitch a little bit?
So basically it's a B2B SaaS. It's business to business. We cater to companies, and we are software as a service, a cloud solution. And there we help companies to structure and automate a particular business process called localization and translation.
Get it.
It's a good nutshell.
It's a good nutshell.
a lot of people struggle, but that was very well perfected, I think. What led you to choose localization? I mean, you could have, with your background, you could have gone into any industry. Was there?
I would not imagine myself like being in localization like 5 years ago. Supposedly, I would think it's like boring and not exciting. With like blockchain around and AI and other things being more excited, but like maybe of luck, maybe of circumstances, we had another project, a mobile app, and we wanted to translate it into 10 languages at once. And when a local translation agency asked us to send them Excel spreadsheets, my coders were reluctant to do so. So instead, we built an environment which was basically a web interface to a database with some machine translation suggestions, translation memory. I know the names now. We didn't know the names at that time.
Yeah.
And we invited translators into it, and they were translating in our own environment. And the history is our friends, they've seen it, and they wanted to use it as well. So we made it available to them. Other friends of friends were prepared to pay for some improvements, for some integrations. So we actually have seen 10 companies using it in 4-6 months. without any marketing push from ourselves. So that was a time when we actually looked at it and realized this is, kind of industry under-attacked, under-serviced in tech, which we can find a particular niche going after software developers. But since then, we kind of evolved, and we would like to go after other fields as well, basically going inside a company and stay not only as automation and structuring tool, but also as a single source of truth for translation streams.
Got it. So let me just dwell on that a little bit. So I think that was the Roamer app, right? That's what I read in Forbes.
Yes.
Okay. And
so that was Florian. Sorry for interrupting.
Sure.
That was actually before the EU decided to abolish roaming rates.
There you go. Yeah. Well, I guess now it's all voice over IP anyway, but
exactly. Yes.
But that was around what, 2012, 13, 14?
13.
Okay. So let me just ask you that. Even in 2013, there were competing offerings, or there were offerings on the market for like software localization. But were you even looking at them at all, or you just decided these guys don't get back to me, they can't deliver what I need, or?
We were a small company, so we were hoping for self-service and straightforward. But once, I can give you few examples. Once my developers, they've seen that you cannot change source strings. You need to re-upload the file, and actually, you need to deal with files, not with keys and values. They didn't want to do it. So that was the difference. And even now, we don't have any translators working for us inside the company. It means that we took a different angle. So we were kind of a team of software developers, with only me not being not a software developer. So we take this angle and we're building it for ourselves without looking much at what others were doing. And we built it the way we liked, and it was also likable by similar teams.
That's so interesting. I mean, I've seen a few other companies that started like that, where it was such a big pain point, and then they're like, well, we might as well just solve it ourselves, right? And then you see with the 10 companies set that you signed on very quickly that there's product market fit, and then that is interesting. Further, did you do market research later on, very quickly, or you just felt like, hey, these 10 companies came on board, this should be a good business long term?
Yeah. So it was a second. So we realized that was a validation, and then we've seen in our check for subscriptions, we're growing bigger with new features. So we were enjoying ourselves, everything coming naturally, and the company being cash flow positive, bootstrapped. So we didn't need to prove anything to anyone, and it was a healthy lifestyle business for maybe 2 years.
So you were bootstrapped and you've recently raised that Series A. Why did you feel the time was right for the Series A now?
We wanted to grow faster, and basically we were outgrowing Latvia as a source of employees, probably now being the biggest B2B SaaS here. So we cannot learn from anyone. And in order to bring people to Latvia, I don't know, even with the VC backing is impossible. So why we actually raised, we kind of sold a little for our independence. We would like to hire bright talents from other countries, and we also turned remote. This is also another opportunity for us to hire elsewhere, but also hiring people who were experienced in larger B2B SaaS. So we're now at 4 million ARR. We would like to hire people who've seen it at 5 or 10, 15 or 20 million.
Even the Estonians, they wouldn't go to
Latvia
or the Lithuanians?
But no, there's no longer need for this,
Yeah.
COVID, I could say thanks to COVID, it was an extra push for us to turn. We were experimenting with remote days, like Fridays, but the virus pushed us into this, and it brings us like two advantages. One, we no longer, will no longer are dependent on the development of virus, and second, that we can hire better people in any location.
And are you fully remote now?
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing, when I looked at your investors list, there was only one institutional investor, right? Capital 3,000 in Vienna.
300.
300. Okay.
Close.
300. Close. They're going to get to 3,000 soon. But the rest were there was Mike, what's it, Chalfen?
Chalfen, yes.
Yeah, with the mosaic.
This is but it's kind of institutional. So okay. It's a particular structure, but it's kind of institutional. And the rest are angel investors.
And that's the thing I'd like to talk to you about a bit more, because when I look at the list of these people, those are very accomplished individuals and with very, very deep relationships and networks. And I was kind of speculating on our last podcast that, they bring a lot more than money to you guys. You may not even, maybe the money is almost a nice to have, because these people have such deep networks and experiences and can get you in front of so many, potential clients or talent. Is that a fair assumption, that you brought them on board as kind of just being invested in the business more than just financially, right? But they have an interest in pushing it forward.
We still have to see, but this is our hope. This is exactly why we have them.
Yeah, it's
and this is extra validation. Having these people, this is extra validation for new hires. So this is a hyper growth trajectory, not only VC backed, but also people from companies from founders who can choose where to go, and they believe in us as well, and hopefully to become also our customers.
Yeah, and really congratulations on that. Very impressive list. So let's talk a bit about the market. So what are your top 3, top 5 kind of market dynamics in the localization technology space, right? Since you started out with Lokalise, it's been 3-4 years. You've kind of observed where things are going. Is there any particular trend you're seeing on the tech side, maybe with your clients, that you can share with us?
More and more companies are looking for a tool like ours. There's some difference in tools, and you can probably differentiate between tools who are more suited for translators and for LSPs, and those who can serve customers' needs, companies' needs. Many companies are using Excel spreadsheets, which is still true, and so obviously it's a no-brainer for them to choose a sophisticated, dedicated third-party product. And more companies are switching from their own internal solutions to third parties.
Talk me through the Excel thing. That still fascinates me. So they can't have major spend, or it's just it wasn't really considered, but you're still finding a lot of greenfield clients that have sending around spreadsheet.
Yes. And you would be wondering, they can be very big, and you'll find probably in any company you find some department who are using Excel spreadsheets. Excel spreadsheets is basically a universal tool, a temporal universal tool for automating any business process. And then sooner or later, you kind of, you're ashamed of this and you need to go somewhere else. It's both painful and shameful.
It used to be a stand-in for a content management system. Back in the day with my financial customers, a lot of them were using Excel as well, which was semi-automated.
Yeah, but we always like to compare localization industry in this regard with client relationship before Salesforce, when Excel spreadsheets were used for client relationship as well.
Yeah.
And
billing,
still
billing as well, I think was big in Excel.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And many times also you would be contacting a company and saying your name, and they were like asking you to, what is your history with us? Like, what have you done before? Which is like now a joke, but it was like 10 years ago, or 15 years ago. And I believe localization industry, it's about like at the same stage as the client relationship was 10 years ago.
Wow. Early,
yes.
Despite
all
a
lot of potential. A lot of
potential. Yeah. So when you go to your potential clients, the ones that are using Excel spreadsheets, I mean, generally, how do you run sales and marketing, or how have you run it so far? And now, obviously, there's probably going to be a step change, right, with that funding. Can you just share a bit about your sales and marketing approach, and how you do go out and look for prospects and accounts, etc.?
Like our growth is very product led.
Yeah.
So like it's still the biggest part is like organic and the references and like word of mouth. We do have like some outbound, and we have like some content strategy, but it's still like word of mouth and customer referrals. And yeah, we don't like motivate our customers much, but they like kind of brag. And since in the beginning there was mostly software developers, and if they like it, they would like to spread it.
Yeah, they're quite community based, which is what we've said a number of times, remarking on kind of all of the posts on Medium. They like to share different kind of tools, so I suppose that helps in your case.
But certainly now we are like moving a little away from developers into managers of different sorts, and eventually to localization managers as well. So we would need to do more regular marketing as well.
It's so different from the services side, which is to a significant extent at some point becomes like a sales game where like you just need to put a lot of energy into sales, otherwise you're stalling out quite rapidly. I mean, there's in the language service provider space, there's also kind of you're great and customers would refer you, but it would be hard to grow past a certain point, and then you really have to double down on sales massively.
Yeah. This is why we don't want to do services.
Yeah,
we are product, and our customization is also like we limit ourselves in what we can do for big customers.
Yeah.
But this is also like sorry for Esther.
Go ahead.
So, but this is also a characteristic of the market when like companies somehow they're looking for a lot of customization, and during the past maybe 10 years, 20 years, there were like hundreds of formats, hundreds of like different ways to do things. I think there should be more standards, like better ways, and then like you don't need like this particular crazy way. There's like better way, and there's a single one. And if we like double downs on some golden standards, it will be much better.
Yeah, I liked what you said. Like I think when we did the interview for the article last week, I think I asked, hey, what are your thoughts on these like thousands of features? And then I think you said, well, we're going to boil this down to 200, and that's where it stays, right? Those are the 200 features, because that is a bit of a problem in this industry, like this over featuring.
Exactly. Yes.
Over feature richness. So you feel very comfortable that you're going to get kind of contain it at some point, and it's just kind of escalating feature requirements.
Especially since the market is kind of blue ocean, and like only a tiny fraction of companies are actually using third-party solutions, and most of are in Excel spreadsheets, and still like there's another universe of companies who do not localize at all.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned hiring a fair amount as motivation for raising, and in the challenges, for example, in attracting potential talent to Latvia. I mean, what's your priority in terms of hiring? What are you looking at?
We are will be mostly hiring in go-to-market. This is like sales, marketing, support, and customer success. We feel like our product is like good enough. We'll be doing something about the product as well, but like we believe the balance between the product and like selling it, it's it's in favor of the product. We need to bring sales and marketing on par with the product.
Very interesting. Let me just change tack for a second. You spoke about at the very beginning about like machine translation as part of something you use maybe when you just started out, right, after a couple of months. Like right now, how are you planning to integrate AI, ML, machine translation, kind of to make the linguists more productive in the UI, etc.? What are some of the features that are there now and maybe coming down the pike soon?
It's pretty straightforward. No blows and whistles. We will be like improving it or developing more features there. Definitely. We don't want to like substitute cut tools much. So we would like to provide this like 2080 cut tool functionality in order to serve our customers who are companies, regardless whether they're using LSPs or several LSPs or a combination of internal translators, freelancers, like whatever they would like to use. We would like to give them like 20% of functionality, which will cover 80% of needs. Definitely, we cannot be like 100% like substitution for like a dedicated cut tool, but we believe we don't need to, especially since like companies, their demands are different from LSPs.
So, but let me just get that straight. So you're saying that, I mean, would your enterprise clients, would they still use another CAT tool on top of it or integrate it somehow? Or you're saying, no, they don't need to, like we feel comfortable that it's enough. Like we don't need to have the most sophisticated CAT tool there.
Yeah. So like our customers will be those who don't need like 100% of cut functionality.
Okay. And then but if they work with like a third-party LSP, then there's going to be some type of connection, API, connector, something like that?
Exactly, yes. So LSP can still use their 100% functionality and sell it to our customers. But first, we would not need to compete. And second, like for us, it's impossible to do it. Our aim is to cut only companies. So and there's much more than cut functionality there. This is like workflow process and all kind of integrations for different tools. So we focus on there. I think it's a like very good approach where we stay LSP agnostic and we don't compete with LSPs, and we have a lot to do with companies.
Yeah, but you would consider, I mean, you own the relationship with the client eventually, right? The LSP would essentially be the resource that works into that supplies that client, but you're the core piece of technology that owns the account at the end of the day. Or would you see it differently?
It depends. So, like, imagine the contract with LSP. Most of money is coming immediately, and then only fractions come on the updates. Here, like, it's small fraction which comes every day on a recurrent basis. And this is also like for LSP, they have particular unique selling point. This is like they provide something we don't provide, which is like translation services, and they can own this relationship. But we stay as this technological layer inside a company.
Get it. Interesting. All right. Well, let me ask you about the vision, growth opportunities. Like, where do you see this going? And for Lokalise in particular, in the next 2 to 3 years, where you see the biggest growth opportunities? Maybe geographically or in terms of the verticals, client segments you're looking at.
We are non-existent in Asia, and even in the United States, it's like a quarter of revenues. So this is like two opportunities we like to explore. In terms of the product, we would like to have more LSPs working inside Lokalise and go in with us together for big technological tech-loving companies.
Mm-hmm.
Since they don't want to do it in Excel spreadsheets and they don't care about like XLIF formats and this like file-based systems.
File-based systems. All right. Well, that would certainly be a lot of progress moving away from that. Great. Well, look, thanks so much for taking the time to do this.
Thanks.
That was great. And again, such short notice. There's been a lot of talk about Lokalise, of course, over the past week with that funding, kind of put you on the map. So at least in the circles that we're connected. So again, thanks so much for doing this, and hope to catch you in real life, IRL, as they say, maybe post COVID at some point.
Yeah, the fun is with Lokalise. We tried like moving remote. We tried to to fight all offline events, since like our distant employees would be in disadvantage. But we decided instead to triple our traveling budget. And once the flights will be available, we'll meet and we facilitate meetings, maybe more than 2 times a year. And
nice.
And still small teams can travel back and forth. So to keep this human element. So combine both things, social life and work.
I think that's a very positive note to end. I do like the virtuality of this all, but at some point we're going to have to meet again.
I think should be a good balance there.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. All right, Peter, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you, sir. Florian, I enjoyed. Cheers.
Bye-bye.